shoes on my feet, stomping out the negativity. Everybody not a friend of me, spread the love, still I move deliberately. Bully face on, but the smile be heavenly. Brooklyn girls, so they love the energy, love sincerity. So I take the liberty to take them on a journey lyrically through hallways and alleys.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Next Chapter, where we discuss shades of gray. I am one of your hosts, Minister Cat, aka Kitty Rose, and I am joined by the beautiful
Melissa D. Don't you love my school lady outfit?
Well, isn't that appropriate for today's topic? I do love your school teacher outfit. Yes, I do actually. How are you, my love? How are you doing today or this week?
Doing wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I mean, it's such a long time in between these weeks. I miss you so much.
I know.
I'm excited
Kitty, I have to ask you,
yes.
Do you make those earrings?
I used to make earrings, but now one of our great underwriters and sponsors are my earring designers that I have every week. So there are 3 designers in particular that I wear, those brothers, Karen's daughters, and my homegirl, Selena, that sells on 125th Street and Lenox in Harlem, that I will introduce you to when you come up here in New York in just a couple of weeks. But thank you for acknowledging my earrings. Yes, they're all the way from Africa.
Wonderful. They're great. Every week there's a different pair. I love them.
Thank you. So are you ready in your teacher's outfit for this week's topic of the week?
I am.
So to no further ado, because Alethea, I'm always with Alethea, I forget about you, my other boyfriend. And now today with Melissa, the topic of the week in her teacher's outfit is homeschooling with a question mark. Now you as a non-mother and me as a mother of 3, when it comes to homeschooling, why are we discussing homeschooling in the next chapter of our lives?
Well, it's also interesting because I was a school social worker, so I can look at this from the other way too, of, from the school perspective, does homeschooling work versus, kids going to public school? But really, I wanted to talk about this because it's a topic that people are starting to bring up now, because in COVID, we had to homeschool our kids pretty much, right? Mm-hmm. And so now people are like, well, is homeschooling better than going to public school? And especially while mass shootings too, what's better, being at home where you might actually be safe, or going to school every day? And who knows what you're going to be learning there and if you're going to be safe. I feel like our whole public school system needs to be recreated, because we're not teaching what we're supposed to teach. We're teaching stuff still from, Industrial Revolution times. So, can homeschooling work? Maybe.
Well, I know as a parent, I had 3 children that went through the school system. I have 2 children who are now currently going through the school system in class, going in person, and that they can easily be doing online. Again, like you mentioned, because of COVID, we've had this new way of actually education, or not necessarily new way, because homeschooling is not a new concept, but I guess a forced concept now that we had to take on with COVID. And I know for me, when my daughter went through COVID, her senior year, and even her first year in college, to me, the benefits that I saw with other parents who homeschool their children, yes, were great in the early years, but as the children got older, I felt like it was a way for them to almost cheat. Almost like have Google while they're in class. They didn't need to know if they were cheating. The teachers didn't need to know if they were cheating or not, or even paying attention. I know there were mad mornings that I woke up and my daughter was supposed to be in class and she had the video off. You know what I'm saying? She had the laptop open, but she had the video, and she was sleeping, or she was on her phone, or she was watching television. So I didn't really think that homeschooling worked during COVID, because when we even did statistics, the social dynamic as well as the grade dynamics dropped because of people being isolated. But I also remember that the parents that were already using homeschooling, you know, those children weren't affected the way that the children recently had to be, that where this concept was new to them. You know, again, I know several parents who, you know, are into the homeschooling, and their children are a little different than the children that go to public school. But I also saw the other side to homeschooling, where children have social anxiety once they have to deal with or interact with others outside of that home environment. There's spectrums to everything, right?
Yes.
In the research, let's go to the first video. If you guys don't mind queuing that up quicker than later or sooner than later, let's go and see what this first video had to say, and then we can kind of dissect that to go into really the pros and the cons to homeschooling.
The idea that there is a sinister plot behind the public school system, and that is not to say that all public school teachers are part of a sinister plot. Many of them are not. They're trying to be lights in the darkness, and thank God for those who are on the front lines. But the very architects of the government system that we call public education were actually intent on destroying Christianity. And I think also the family. And I think that's playing itself out more and more right in front of our eyes. Alex, talk with us about some of the dangers that you see when government is in charge of our children's education.
Yeah, Kirk, and I just want to emphasize what you said. You're absolutely right. There are so many wonderful men and women who work in the public school system who are, as you pointed out, trying to be a light, trying to teach truth to the children, really trying to do their best in a system that unfortunately is inherently flawed. And some of the dangers, I mean, the Bible actually says, you know, judge something, look at something by its fruit. And what has been the fruit of this system? Well, I think at this point it's readily apparent. You don't have to do a deep dive to find out what's going on. According to the federal government's own data, literally, this is not you know, an exaggeration, less than 1/3 of 8th graders in America today in the public school system are proficient in anything. Now, by proficient, I don't mean they're good at it, they're masters, they're proficient on some of the most dumbed down standards we've ever had in the history of the Western world. So that's the educational fruit of this system. We now have a generation where millions of children are graduating from high school and they literally cannot read their high school diploma. That's not my opinion, that's a fact. The federal government will tell you this. Every 2 years they release the National Assessment of Educational Progress. This is their data, not mine. We see the
So the thing is, are we thinking that these kids' parents are intelligent enough to be able to teach their children? Like, we're giving them that, you know, like that assumption. I've met some parents, they're not that bright.
Well, we are bright enough, but the system has us boxed in that we're also, the parents are in control type of situations or control environments because we have to go to work. So really, in my mind, school has always been the system designed to be the babysitter while the workforce goes to work every day. So they give us this false sense of security or false sense of education by saying, well, while you guys are in the fields working, we'll teach your kids what we want them to know, or we'll teach your kids the disconnect away from family and values under the illusion that we're teaching them history. Because like you mentioned earlier, you know, teachers, first of all, let's take acknowledgement. Teachers are wonderful. I love educators. My best friend's a teacher. My son is a teacher. I love educators. And I love the way he said that teachers they definitely try to be light in darkness. I agree 110%. However, in 2022, where you are still teaching Christopher Columbus discovered America, you know what I'm saying? Are you still adding to the matrix or adding to the blur of false information? And then, like he mentioned, public education destroying the spiritual component. Yes, we're not supposed to involve church and state. We understand that. But do you also take away the dynamics of purity, because now you're in an environment that's supposed to have structure, but allows children to come to school even though there's rules to how you're supposed to be dressed, to how you're supposed to act, to how you're supposed to talk, but there's no real structure in controlling, you cannot dress this way. You cannot, if you cut school, we're gonna, contact your parents, truancy. How really detailed are the schools to that? Even just last week with but recently with the school shooting, like, I'm not one, you obviously cannot bar up schools, but what kind of protection was there where someone was able to get into a school with a fucking AK-47. I feel like if this place or this building is designed to educate me and give me the tools needed to be a successful tax-paying, law-abiding citizen, then why, one, are you still teaching me false information? Why are you disconnecting me from spiritual awareness or I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Responsibility, respect for yourself? And then why are you making it easy or accessible for violence to come into an environment of education? So even though we have all of these pros, I feel like the cons are coming up and are more than the pros to public education or to open education, where now, like you said, people might be more concerned with protecting their children and having them come home. You know what I'm saying? Or having them stay home and either homeschooling them themselves or having someone come into the home to be responsible for the homeschooling component. I don't know. What's your thoughts before we go to our PSAs?
I mean, I feel like the whole system needs to be rebuilt, really, because like you said, we are forced to go to work all day. What are we supposed to do with our children? Teach them, not work, and then we don't have any money to feed children after we're, teaching them? It needs to be rebuilt. And you said, like, tax-paying individuals. We don't even know how to pay taxes. We go to school. Nobody teaches us about taxes, so they're not even teaching the stuff that we need to know, but yet they still continue to teach us that Christopher Columbus was this great guy and discovered America, and let's not talk about all the terrible things that he did and stuff like that. Just like, so yeah, we continue this. And for the schools are being put in a box too, because they have to worry about those numbers. Let's get those numbers up so that we can get funding. And so what are they forced to do? Push the kids through. Teachers go into school to teach, but they're being tied up.
And I'm a perfect example to that, because my oldest son, and this is what's beautiful about education, once again, I have 3 children. One is in grad school, one is going to her second year in college. But my oldest son is a high school dropout, doesn't even have his GED, because while he was in school, Bloomberg was in office and had just passed the No Left Behind Child Act. So my son would pass his classes. No, excuse me. My son would fail every exam in his class, but would pass his Regents at the end. So because he would pass his Regents, but fail the whole school year with exams, homework, nothing, they would still push him along to the next grade, where it got to the point that I went up to the school and was like, no. He should not be passed to the next grade because he did horrible this year, but they passed him anyway. And when he saw that it was a gimmick, he dropped out because he was like, I don't need this. They don't even give me anything of value. And it ends up him being now a 27-year-old man out here that, yes, has to make a living, but that education that we so-called needed in the school system, he's been able to now be successful without. So what does that mean? On that note, let's check out our PSAs for the week.
Part-time job, full-time hustle, all-time Shiro to all of us. You nurture, we listen. You teach, we thrive. You lift our spirits, but we've got to lay down the truth. It's time for you, our Shiro, to stretch for the stars. A free online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today. Start saving more for retirement so you can feel prepared and live your life to the fullest. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
I know that as a parent of 3 and someone who did not necessarily work in corporate the whole time I was raising my children, I don't know if I would want to be home with them all day, to be honest with you. Like, I spend a lot of time with my children. I don't think I would have been built to teach them at home all day anyway. I think I would have gone crazy, and I probably would have did a disservice to them as an educator more if I didn't send them off to public school education. But I do realize that education is important, because even as early as the beginning, when I first started with education, my children went to a private nursery. Like, I never did a daycare. They were in private school up until 2 years old. And then the schools that I put them in were very, about the arts and about education. We were very involved in even what schools we chose our children to be in, because we knew as parents we did not want to take on that responsibility of the day-to-day educating of our children, of the things that the society said that they needed to know, which makes me think that the idea or concept of school is really just an illusion to have people babysit our kids while we go to the workforce. Because I saw something on TV the other day where this parent was talking about, she loves spending time with her son, and a day that he doesn't want to go to school, she'll be like, all right, let's go shopping. And she said that, her son will have much more memories about her spending time with him than what was 10 times 10. And then she said, I don't even remember what 10 times 10 is, and I've never had to use it since I left school. So when we come with that concept that everything that we learned in school, we don't even use in our real life, then is school an illusion to just keep us busy for our children, like a way of, distracting them and giving them false information to help them stay blurred and disconnected from their true understanding of their ability to be all they can really be?
Yeah, I mean, thinking of it like the tax thing, like if they actually learn what taxes are going to, and how they can go about voting against that type of stuff, that would really create some discourse for our system, right? If we actually taught them how to change the system, but we don't.
No.
And we kind of are teaching them just to kind of follow along, listen to what the, big person says, right. Be compliant, right. And, then you'll be okay.
Be compliant, exactly. Because you're not even giving them, like you said, the tools that's really help them. Like, financial literacy is not taught in schools. So then you have a bunch of people in society not understanding how to use or spend or have money, or even the concept of money or the concept of wealth. Then you have this whole political dynamics. You teach kids to only vote every 4 years, and then you have one class that you teach them about legislation, one class you teach them about bills, and one class you teach them about policy, and then one time you take them up to Albany. So those 4 times, those 4 topics, that's all you discuss in the 12 years that they're in school. So by the time that they graduate, no one knows about local politics. No one knows about what's the difference between the legislator and the Senate, or I still don't know. Look at that. I'm fucking 47 years old. And I don't remember that. I didn't really remember, or wasn't even taught about bills and how regular people can pass or submit bills. Like, all of these things that actually affect us in our society that we should be taught or prepared for, we're not getting prepared for. So then what's the point of it? You know what I'm saying? So then I can understand why some parents was like, well, let me teach my kids at home. Because if I teach my kids at home, I'm in control of what they're learning, and I'm in control of what kind of people they actually do become. Because school, as you think, is something to protect, but now you have these concepts of these school shootings that is nothing new. It might be new for us on a global, but when I talk to my homegirl who's a teacher right here in New York City, and I talk to her about how she feels about the gun shooting, she told me that in her 27 years that these mass shootings are nothing, that she's confiscated guns all throughout the years, that she's confiscated bad behavior from children, breaking up fights, because at the end of the day, you still got whatever issues at home. So if you don't have parents that are teaching you the basic fundamentals at home to be that good tax-paying person, then even in school, it's not going to make you a better person. So you still are disconnected. You're in a system that's not giving you the things that you need to prepare, and then you're coming from a home environment that's not giving you the things to prepare. So what happens to society? Are you guys setting us up for the next generation of criminals?
Yeah. I
Let's
mean,
see.
it really is a broken system.
A broken system or a design broken system. But let's see what the second video had to say, and get that feedback from this mom who looks like a homeschool mom. This is an old video, but I thought I really thought the kids is what impressed me. So this is why I pulled this video out for us to talk about.
Haircuts going on in this video.
Hello, for real, straight up. All right, guys, go to that video for us, please.
Lunch. Homeschooling is growing in popularity, many American parents saying it gives their children the religious or moral grounding they find missing in conventional schools. But most say it's just a better fit for their kids.
Probably the biggest thing is that I get to learn at my own pace. The ability to go faster or more in depth on a certain subject is awesome.
But it really broadened into a phenomenal opportunity for the family to be together, to learn, to spend more quality time together.
Homeschooling is legal across the U.S., but the regulations vary widely. 10 states don't even require homeschooling parents to notify the authorities. Christy, though, keeps a detailed grade book, and she complies with the state of Virginia's requirements.
And that's taken care of, at least in our case, by a standardized test at the end of every year. So we get a check on our learning.
But homeschooling doesn't mean all the schooling needs to happen at home. Far from it. In this class, Katie and Andrew are joining other homeschoolers to learn techniques in problem solving. It's just one of the many activities organized by homeschooling families, either among themselves or with conventional schools, defying a stereotype that homeschooled children are isolated and deprived of important social skills.
People were like, "What? You're really good at being social or something." Because yeah, we are. We do have friends, and we do have play dates and stuff.
I gotta say, those are well-spoken children. Not one of them said,
That's what I said. That was the first thing that impressed me, the young boy, when he mentioned that he gets to learn at his own pace and how, comfortable he felt and very clear. I was like, okay, Mom. So I guess that was one of the things I felt like was a benefit, because both the son and daughter seemed to be very adjusted, and even the way that they communicated to the audience the benefits at the moment that they felt being homeschooled. One of my girlfriends who lives in California, her daughter is now turning 14, going into high school, but up until now she's been homeschooling her. So now that she's in a new town, new city, and getting ready to start high school, she's coming into this fall the public school system and going into high school with people on her fellow peers. And I felt like I got a little scared for her, because you're so used to being by yourself. Are you going to be able to adjust now to people socially, because you always are in your old situation? But then we got a chance to see the other young girl talk about how, yes, they have play dates. Yes, they go out, and there is a community of other parents who are homeschooling their children who now network so that their children can have that so-called missing component. Because if they send them off to public school, that religious but moral grounding is what I definitely do feel is a disconnect that some parents might want to protect from their children. Not necessarily the religious part, but the moral part.
Yeah, and I think that's important. Remembering going to school 30 years ago and then seeing how school is, at being a part of the school, it is missing. I mean, there is just there's this thing of your kid messes up in school and it's the teacher's fault. But when I was a kid, if I messed up in school, it was my fault, and I better watch out if my mom got a call. There was no question about if the school principal called, that's it.
Right.
I'm grounded. But now it's we would have parents come into school and be like, you know what your teacher did to my kid? Yelled at my kid for not paying attention. You know, you need to fire that teacher. And it's like this whole thing has flipped around, and it's really been quite a thing to kind of witness from both sides. But with that, you know, I think there is missing this moral piece. There really needs to be this moral piece of like, you're there to do a job, to learn, and, you know, learn to respect each other, respect everybody's opinions, and, you know, and it's just not just respect the elders, it's more of respecting each other and how everybody needs to be able to communicate together and express themselves.
Well, I think that was a great wrap up. Usually we have to like, what's our wrap up? But you just wrapped us up nice and smooth, just in that end of synopsis in regards to us kind of just, once again, basis of communication and communicating with each other, and then what our highs and expectations of whether we are in public school or whether we do homeschooling, that communication between the parents and the children, the parents and the educators, all those that's involved to help us create what we are supposed to be creating, which is responsible humans out here that's all a part of this human activity so that we can all relate to each other, coexist with each other, and love on each other. So before we end, you know we got to tell you guys to do this. Like, follow, and share. This is a community effort, and we are looking for you guys to share your thoughts. What is your opinion? What are your thoughts? What's information that you can share with us that we can share to the audience about the pros and the cons of homeschooling? On that note, I am so excited to end another episode of The Next Chapter where we discuss shades of gray. And again, I am one of your hosts, Minister Kat, a.k.a. Kitty Rose, and I am joined by the beautiful
Melissa D, Professor.
Don't forget, guys, subscribe to our channels. Also, if you're looking for psychological help, Melissa D is a therapist. You guys can email her online, get that professional help. You guys can email me. On that note, just check us out every Saturday on BronxNet, and for the other networks, your local listings, as well as YouTube. Don't forget to check us out and subscribe. Again, we love you and we appreciate you, and thank you for joining us on another episode of The Next Chapter where we discuss shades of gray. Mwah.
Legendary ciphers get the MCs in the jars. The city never sleeps. Slept from 1 to 5 when COVID hit the block and we had to stay inside. Tough love is all I know, so be gentle with my soul. Learn to navigate winters with no coat. If you never been cold, you never been broke. Hustle 24/7 just to stay afloat. So New York, like dollar pizza in the cold. What shit? That real life grit from the heart of the city is as hard as it gets. This that New York shit. That real life grit from the heart of the city is as hard as it gets. This that New York shit. That real life grit from the heart of the city is as hard as it gets. This that New York shit. That real life grit from the heart of the city is as hard as
Where's Melissa? So I can